Detectives knew they couldn't accuse Darlene outright. Not yet. They needed proof, hard evidence that would unravel her carefully woven story. So they waited. They studied her every move. They pulled phone records, financial documents, and statements from her co-workers. And slowly, a picture began to emerge. First, the phone calls. Late-night conversations traced back to a man from her past, a former lover she'd never truly let go of. Second, the finances. Darlene had recently inquired about life insurance policies, her questions eerily specific, timing that raised more than a few eyebrows. But perhaps most telling was her demeanor.
Welcome to Matter of Time, your destination for real, unique, and eye-opening stories. From hidden truths to fascinating events, we bring you content that informs, inspires, and keeps you hooked. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, because every story is better when we experience it together.
At Keith's funeral, while friends wept and family clung to each other, Darlene stood eerily composed. No trembling hands, no broken sobs, just a mask of solemn control. Investigators decided to push. They questioned her again and again, rephrasing, circling back, watching for cracks. And with each round, her answers grew less consistent. Finally, they set a quiet trap, recreating the crime scene, analyzing ballistic angles, and asking Darlene to walk them through what happened. It was then, under the weight of scrutiny, that her story began to collapse. She contradicted herself. She added details she hadn't mentioned before. And most damning of all, her description of the intruder's movements didn't match the forensic evidence. The walls were closing in, and Darlene Gentry, once so careful, was beginning to unravel. For weeks, detectives chipped away at Darlene's story. Each interview was another swing at the walls she had built around herself, and slowly the cracks began to show. At first, they were small, hesitations in her voice, slight contradictions in her timeline. But soon those cracks spread. Darlene couldn't keep her lies straight. One day she insisted she had been asleep when the gun went off. Another day she claimed she had been awake, frozen in fear. Detectives pressed harder. They reminded her of the evidence, the neat arrangement of the guns outside, the absence of forced entry, the damning phone records. And each time her explanations grew weaker. Then came the breaking point. During one particularly long interrogation, investigators leaned in and asked, "Darlene, if this was a robbery, why was Keith the only one shot? Why did the intruder leave everything else behind?" She couldn't answer. She lowered her head, tears welling, but not tears of grief. They were tears of exposure, of someone realizing the truth was closing in. Though she never gave a full confession, her silence spoke volumes. And in the eyes of the law, silence under such pressure can be louder than words. The mask had slipped, and once it slipped, there was no putting it back on. By the time Darlene Gentry's case went to trial, the story had captured headlines across Texas. A nurse, a mother of 3, now accused of orchestrating the cold-blooded murder of her husband. The courtroom buzzed with tension, every seat filled, every eye locked on the woman who once seemed the picture of suburban perfection. The prosecution laid out their case piece by piece. The motive, Darlene's crumbling marriage, her financial concerns, her desire for freedom without the stain of divorce. The evidence, her inconsistent statements, her suspicious behavior, her inquiries about life insurance, and the ultimate betrayal, the forensic proof that Keith had been shot while vulnerable, with no chance to defend himself. Witnesses testified. Friends described the cracks in the marriage. Investigators walked the jury through the crime scene, pointing out details that didn't align with a break-in. A firearms expert confirmed the weapon had been fired at close range. The defense tried to paint Darlene as a loving wife caught in a tragedy beyond her control. They argued that grief explained her composure, that trauma explained her contradictions. But the jury wasn't convinced. The weight of the evidence was simply too great. And so, after hours of deliberation, the verdict was read. Guilty. Keith Gentry, the quiet man who only wanted to protect his family, had finally found justice. And Darlene, once his partner in life, was now condemned as the architect of his death. When the gavel struck, Darlene Gentry's fate was sealed. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison, a lifetime behind bars for a crime that shattered the very family she once promised to protect. For Keith's loved ones, justice brought relief, but not healing. His children would grow up without a father, and without the mother who should have raised them. The family home, once filled with laughter, was now only a memory, haunted by betrayal and loss. Neighbors still whisper about it. Friends who knew the couple still struggle to understand how love could curdle into something so dark. And the story of Keith and Darlene serves as a chilling reminder. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't out there in the world. It's inside your own home with the person you trust most. In the end, Keith's legacy is not defined by his violent death, but by the quiet strength he carried through life. A man who worked, provided, and hoped until the very end that love could be enough. But love, when twisted by selfishness and deceit, can turn lethal. And for Darlene Gentry, that truth cost her everything.